Let me tell you about Hill Harper, 2 degrees from Harvard, an actor, philanthropist, activist, and an author. When I read letters to a young brother, that made me sharper. His biggest role yet was becoming a single father. You might have seen him on CSI and The Good Doctor. He graduated law school with Barack Obama. Yeah, dedicated to a life of service, living in your purpose. Here your roses, you deserve 'em. Dear Hill, peace, it's C5. I had to let you know the impact you had on my life. I used to be a troubled youth, I was scaring my mother, so she got me your book, Letters to a Young Brother. I had to write you back, help me get my life on track. You made me proud to be black, and damn, you can act. He got game in too deep, them was class. You got 8 honorary degrees, dog, that's massive. You always giving back to the people, the youth especially. You built a foundation, manifest your destiny. You own several companies on multiple executive boards, and you won 7 NAACP awards. 5 books, 4 times best-selling author. You adopted a kid and you a proud single father. I heard you running for Senate, you sure got my vote. You give all the people hope. Let me tell you about Hill Harper, 2 degrees from Harvard, an actor, philanthropist, activist, and an author. When I read letters to a young brother, that made me sharper. His biggest role yet was becoming a single father. You might have seen him on CSI and The Good Doctor. He graduated law school with Barack Obama. Yeah, dedicated to a life of service, living in your purpose. Here your roses, you deserve 'em.
And everyone, keep your questions. We will definitely try to make time at the end for questions. So thank you again, Mr. Harper. It's all on you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just seeing that video, it touches my heart, because the whole reason I became an actor in the first place, the whole reason I wrote my books, was to create impact and legacy, and have and empower us, empower everybody, because folks fed into me, right? And I feel like we're all in this together, and we all have to give back in certain ways. And if we collaborate, we win. And so uplifting each other, working together, doing those things in collaboration. And that's what, for C5, this young genius brother, to have read my book years ago, decide to use his genius to record something that hopefully touches somebody when they see it, which is going to inspire them to live out their destiny and manifest their destiny in a different way. That's really incredible. So I get very inspired seeing that, and it touches my heart, because, when I first thought about acting, I thought about people like Paul Robeson, who obviously, because of a completely different generation, never met, but he was an actor who went to Columbia Law School, who was politically active, and he was an activist, and he did all this work. And so the one thing I want to say first out of the gate is, there's a saying out there that people try to say that is a big lie. And I just want to say, listen, it's a big lie, so don't buy into it. There's a saying where people say, don't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. What I don't like about that saying is that it seems to suggest that we don't have the capacity to be masters of many things. And I want to tell each of you out there that you are magnificent, that you are brilliant, that you can master so many things, amazing things. And what's amazing about you being young people is that, barring some horrible pandemic, you're going to live to be at least about 150 years old. I mean, just look at how life expectancy is going up. And so what does that mean? It means you don't have to think about your life the same way any generation has thought about their lives before. You could have 4 different 20-year careers with about 5 years in between each to learn a new skill, and still have another 10, 20 years of vacay time. And so you don't have to think about this idea that you have to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life, because you can do so many things. Think about how to expand your options. That's what education does. It gives you this foundation to expand your optionality. And I often say that education and money are very similar. Neither one guarantees happiness, neither one guarantees success, but they both buy you something very valuable, and that's options. The more education you have, the more you learn, the more options you have to do different things. The more resources you have in the form of the tool of money, the more you can use that tool to provide more options. And so resources and tools like education, like money, are very valuable. They're not end results. They're tools that you put into your toolkit to build your foundation. And that's why I want us to definitely think about these things in the right context, because so many people try to sell us things that are result oriented rather than process oriented and foundational. And so I often say we are all active architects of our own life. I write that in my books, and I talk about how are we active architects. First, you start with a blueprint or a plan, just like an architect will build a structure. You don't start building first. And then you build a foundation next. That's what the solid piece of the building. And we have to think about that for our life. So foundational elements for our lives, foundational elements would be education, like I said, figuring out ways to access resources and in not a high cost way. I'll get more into that later. Faith, family, friends, all of these are resources. They're foundational to building the life you want to build. I always say you all should put together your own personal board of directors. Just like a corporation has a board of directors, their job isn't to run the day-to-day operations of the business. Their job is to make sure the business stays on course, to stay open, to stay successful. So surround yourself with people who you know have your best interest at heart, not people that are projecting fear onto you, that are making you, saying you need to do this, you need to do that, but people who are asking you questions. What do you want your life to look like? What makes you happy? What makes you smile? What do you want to learn? Surround yourself with people who are asking those questions, because they're the ones that are interested in what the answers are, and therefore will help you manifest that. Third piece of being an active architect of your life is the framework. Any structure that's built, you get the foundation done, and then you put the frame or the beams into it. Sometimes there are these steel columns, sometimes they're concrete, sometimes it's just wood, but that's really what's holding up the house. A lot of people think, or the structure, a lot of people think the walls support it. No, it's actually the frame, and usually people hide the frame in the walls so you don't see it, but that's literally what's holding up even the ceiling or the roof. And so think about what your framework is for your life. I would suggest to you your framework for your life are the choices you make. Let me break that down real quick. So if you've been working on building a foundation, every day you're faced with different sets of choices. You can choose to do things that support your blueprint or your plan and also support building your foundation, or you can choose to do things that don't support either. Maybe it's a get rich quick scheme. Maybe it's something that your friends are trying to convince you to do, peer pressure and all that. Maybe it's something that you're trying to feel avoiding yourself because maybe you don't feel good about who you are, or something's challenging you. So you feel like you have to make a choice that doesn't fit quite with who you want to be. But choices are your framework, and you can always revert back to your blueprint or what you want to do in your life to root those choices. Why is that important? Because I would suggest to you that the choices you make on a daily basis, the small micro choices, like brushing your teeth every day, flossing, as well as the bigger macro choices, like do you take out a big student loan, or do you go to community college first to get your requirements stuff, or do you hang out with your friends all the time and not put in study time? Do you not prep for different types of standardized tests that can elevate the quality of your educational experience? All of these different things are choices you make along the way. Who you decide to spend time with and what activities they're into, who you decide to date and what activities they are into. These types of things are choices that you make every day, small and large, but the series of choices tend to impact, and then you grow on top of them. And I will say this, because now we're getting to the fourth place of being an active architect of your own life. And this is where this word courage comes in. Courage is my favorite word in the English language. The root or the etymology of that word is kur, which means heart. And what it is what's in your heart? What makes your heart beat faster? What do you really love? Not what you're supposed to love, not what Instagram or Be Real or TikTok says you should like or love. What do you really love? When you hear about an injustice, does it make your heart beat faster? Then maybe you're an activist who wants to solve a problem. When you see a movie and you just love the film, it makes your heart beat fast. Maybe you want to be a writer and write film. When you're playing basketball or you're listening to music, maybe you want to do that. And it's not about what you want to do for a career. Let me be clear. It's about what you want to lean your heart into, what you want to explore, how you want to manifest the best version of you, because you are already magnificent. You are already perfect because you are you. You're unique. You've already won the lotto, right? You are a human walking the earth, which is very rare in the scheme of this massive universe. You're amazing. And so reminding yourself of that is really important. And this is where courage comes in. To build up your courage and your core, sometimes you have to say affirmations. It wasn't until I got to Hollywood that I learned why people have entourages. They have entourages because they hire people to say the stuff that they need to hear, because sometimes that stuff takes courage. Man, you can do it. You're great. Oh, you're amazing. Da, 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 da. But we can do that for ourselves. In my second book, Letters to a Young Sister, Define Your Destiny, the last FINE of define is in caps, because I want young women, I want young men, I want all of us to be able to go to the mirror, look into it, and say, I'm fine, which stands for fantastic, interesting, necessary, and exceptional. And you are. You can use that. With my son, we do a poem almost every morning when we're driving to school called A Great Somebody. And it's a poem by Adrian Seeley Hardesty. And I'm not going to do the whole thing, but it goes like this. I'm a serious child. I'm a serious child with serious goals. My life is destined to be filled with positivity. I'm a worker. If it takes hard work, I will do it. I'm a clean somebody. I know that if I lie down with hogs, I can come up with mud. So I'm going to keep my mind, my body, and my character clean. I'm intelligent. My brain is a storage place. I'm going to fill it to the brim with knowledge and look forward with hope for what tomorrow will bring. It goes on. It goes on further. But it ends with this: I am the greatest somebody there is. Start leading me now, teacher. Start guiding me now, teacher. Start praising me now, teacher, and you will see me rise to the highest heights. So we can do these things. The reason why it's important that I mention this is that you may or may not realize this consciously, but the world is constantly bombarding us with negative talk. So much so that we almost become a negative self-talk ourselves. We start feeding in doubt and fear that's not even ours. You know what's so crazy? We inherited that from somebody else. Someone projected that upon us. It could be gender-based, it could be race-based, it could be income-based, it could be about looks, it could be about height, it could be about melanin, it could be about curl, hair, not hair, it could be about eyelashes and how long or short they are, it could be about nose, it could be about all sorts of different insecurities and feeding that we get projected upon us from family, from friends, from so-called friends, from Instagram, and from all sorts of different places, from movies and television. It's all bombardment, like subconscious. So to rewire that and rework that is important, that we remind ourselves how great we are. When we are able to be conscious about our own self-talk. If you start hearing doubts and fears come up, remember, those aren't yours. 99% of the fears you have are false. I call fear false evidence appearing real. Yeah, that's right. FEAR, false evidence appearing real. The fears feel real, and you're kind of like, oh, I'm feeling like a little scared. In fact, somebody asked me the other day, they said, man, you're actually going to run for US Senate? Are you scared? And I said, I'm a little nervous about it because it's new territory for me. But I do know one thing. The line, do not be afraid, shows up 365 times in the Bible. That's one for every day. So God told me don't be afraid. I'm good. I don't need to be afraid, right? Because we're all the same. We're all humans. You cut our flesh, we all bleed. And then there's that old joke, if you ever want to not be nervous around somebody, just imagine them sitting on a toilet. And it gets real quick, doesn't it? You know, it's just like, I don't care who you are, just, look, you see Tom Brady sitting on a toilet. Yeah, it's pretty humbling. It's humbling. It's humbling. So never think that someone is above or beyond or this or that or the other. Taylor Swift just sold out a lot of concerts. She sits on a toilet. She does. She sits on a toilet. I'm telling you. So here's the deal. We all do the same thing. When it gets hot, we sweat. When we have to go to the bathroom, we sit on a toilet. When we cut ourselves, we bleed. And that means we're all in it together, though. And so I love the good part of that collab, the good part of us thinking about how we're connected. One of my favorite quotes is by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he said that we're all tied together in a single garment of mutual destiny. And think about what a garment is, like a shirt. Like all these little stitches in my shirt, like these are all threads. And just think about yourself as a thread. And we're all stitched together in a single garment. And the tighter we work together, and the tighter we collaborate, and the more empathy we have, and the more love we have in our hearts for each other, the tighter that becomes. Yet we live in a world where we're being told to be divisive and be negative and separate. We can fight against that. And so all that's to say, the final piece of being an active architect of your own life is doors. I often ask the question, what's the one small thing that every architect designs in their structure that's essential for the structure to fulfill its purpose? It's doors. For the structure to fulfill its purpose, provide shelter, people need to get in, but doors also let people out. And so what does that mean, doors? It means that if you have your blueprint and you have your foundation and you're making choices, the best ones you can, open up doors to new people, new ideas, and new information. So then when you get that new input, you can modify your blueprint and then do that work again. Doors also let people out. All of us have people in our lives that we need to let out of our lives if we're actually going to be truly who we are. People who project risk, fear upon us and all that, and dissuade us from taking risk. And so with that, if anybody has any questions or any comments, I'm happy to take them. We can talk about being active architects for our life. We can talk about courage. We can talk about fear. We can talk about more affirmations. We can talk about the hard work that it takes to actually achieve. Or we can talk about the state of politics in the world. Whatever you guys want to talk about, happy to.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Harper. I know that was a lot, but that was all amazing. And I know some scholars, because we're in different states, just to let you know, Mr. Harper, we're in different states and some have dismissal right now. So it's okay.
They gotta go already?
No, not all of them, some of them. So in case, I know some people have to go for
They're
dismissal.
going in 3 minutes? They go at the top of the hour?
They go, yeah, 2:30, I believe.
So
For some.
whoever's got a question that has to get dismissed, ask it quick.
Yes, we have plenty of questions that were asked beforehand and still people in the chat. So folks, bring those questions in. I do have quite a few already ahead of time. They all received your bio ahead of time as well. And so some questions were sent in ahead of time. And they know that you went to law school. So one question that we had earlier was, what made you kind of leave the law path that you were on, and were you scared when you were changing gears earlier in your career?
Sure. Well, first of all, like I said before, education is about options. And the one thing I hate about the way that we talk about education today in this society is that you're supposed to study something so you can do something, rather than study it so you become a more learned human and you become a better thinker and you become a better critical thinker. And so it's so limiting if you think just because you study the law, you have to practice law, or just because you studied medicine, you have to be a doctor. No, you can study physics, archaeology, law, medicine, and then do whatever you want, but you're still bringing all that knowledge with you. And so I just love the theater. I did try out going to some law firms and doing things and to see if I really liked it. I just didn't enjoy it. When I was in those law offices, I felt like that tie was a noose around my neck. And so, I couldn't stay with it. I didn't want to stay with it, but it was a blessing to be able to go to Harvard Law School, go to the Kennedy School of Government. It was a blessing to be able to work in those law firms as a summer associate, to learn what I didn't want to do. And because there would always be that fantasy that the working in a law firm was like Blair Underwood and LA Law. You guys are too young to remember this show, but there was a show with Blair Underwood and who I ended up acting with later. And I would joke about it because I was like, you came to Harvard Law School when I was there to speak. And now we're working together, but in a completely different capacity. And so, you know, life takes you in different directions, and follow your heart. That's the fundamental thing. My heart led me to go to Harvard Law School, but my heart also led me to become a professional actor. And my heart has led me to be a writer, and now it's led me to run for US Senate. So you follow your heart.
And on that note, I went another fantastic question. Given our announcement, if you were elected, how would you like to change the world?
Wow. I mean, listen, you know, our democracy is broken. Let's just be honest. It's broken because the systems that have been in place for a very long time have actually gotten worse and more entrenched. And the folks that are in power have more interest in maintenance of that power than of serving people. So there are very many barriers to entry to even participating in our democracy. And that's why there's so low voter turnout. I keep telling people all the time, the largest voting constituency in the United States of America is what? People who don't vote. It should not be that way in a democracy. But it is, because a lot of people have checked out because they don't feel like they're being represented. They don't feel like it matters. And also serious systemic hurdles have been placed upon their ability to even participate in it. And so if we talk about what I would want to do, I would want to reclaim our democracy for the people and reclaim it in a way that folks who can't write big checks and folks who don't know or have lobbyists actually have a voice in our democracy.
Right. There was a special shout out from Miss Davis in Greater Hearts Academy, her K-2 scholars wanted to say hello and shout you out. And the question that came in was, who impacted you the most in your life?
Ooh, wow. So listen, I've had so many different people that have come into my life. And so you catch me on a different day, I talk about different people. There was my Uncle Russell, who every time I saw him, he said, how your grades? What are you doing in school? I was scared of him. He was like, I'm gonna shake you up, you better do well. You disgrace us and disgrace the family, you better do it. So Uncle Russell, shout out. I have my grandfather, who I'm named after, Dr. Harold Hill in Seneca, South Carolina. He was a pharmacist, served the Black community during Jim Crow, Piedmont Pharmacy in Oconee County, South Carolina. I saw him trade prescription medicine for chickens and potatoes and things like that, serving the community when we couldn't go to Rexall or Walgreens, or that's CVS and Rite Aid for you all youngsters. And then I got my grandfather on my father's side, Harry D. Harper, who was in a small town in Iowa, Fort Madison, Iowa, had an 88-acre farm, and he was just an incredible man there. So many people. My mom was one of the first Black female anesthesiologists. She's a super inspiration. And then there are books. There are people, I've read autobiographies, biographies, I've read books. Mentorship on paper works. So anybody you respect, anybody you're interested in, anybody you like, read about them. And all you have to do is look at the choices that they've made, how they made. I talked about Paul Robeson earlier. Look at the choices Paul Robeson made. I've tried to follow suit in similar types of choices just because I had so much respect. So anyone you have respect for, look at the choices and follow them, and then ask yourself a question: why do I respect them? Are they seeding into the community and making it better? Or are they taking away from the community and making it potentially worse and draining it? Somehow, hopefully, you find your way to respect the people who are feeding in instead of taking out.
Awesome. We'll take like 2 or 3 more questions, and folks, I know some people have to go, but it's okay. We'll have the recording to send out. So it's okay for 2 or 3 more questions. We have so many. Okay, awesome. Let's see. When you were the age of our scholars, what was your favorite subject? Like, what's the subject that you liked the most in school?
You know what? I think I liked PE. I like PE the best. Now, a lot of these schools have cut PE, which stands for physical education. That means you go get to play and go get to do stuff. I got to run around. I got to throw dodgeball. I got to do kickball. That was my favorite subject. And so I got an A in PE every year. Every year I got an A in PE. Now, we're talking about more academic focused subjects. I like writing. I did. You know, I like to express myself with poetry. I remember a line from my first poem: goals and dreams are one and the same. Just say you believe and both you will attain. I have that stuck in my head. So I like poetry. I like writing. And those were, I would say, those were my two favorites.
Awesome. Let's see, about this is about the same, along the same lines, because I know our kids are, kindergarten to 8th grade, a lot of them.
I know.
They asked if, you achieved a lot clearly through education. Did you always, so similar to what you were just saying, did you always focus on your studies, or did you ever like sports? You mentioned you like to write.
Listen,
anything else when you were young? What else did you do outside of?
You want to be a well-rounded human. That means you do everything, play sports, but also get the books. And there's the deal. This is what I try to tell my son this. Anything you do on a daily basis, you will become a master at it. I'm just telling you, I don't care what it is. If you read every day, which you should, you'll become a master reader. You do math every day, which you should, you become a master in math. If you write and do poetry and creative writing every day, you'll become a master. But also if you play basketball or football, whatever, you will master music, piano, flute, violin, horn section, any of that. Do all of this, right? Don't just choose one. Say, no. All I want to do is play basketball. Or no. All I'm going to do is sit here and read. That's all I'm doing. I don't care. No. Do it all, please.
Amazing. In the video, and I think we've had it in your bio as well, you're a dad. Is now, for a couple of years now. How do you like being a dad? And was it different than what you thought it would be?
Very different. Because my son is 7, he's going into 2nd grade. And I thought being a dad was like, you're programming a computer. You feed stuff in,
right,
and then they do what you say. It's like you could just program it.
Right.
But that's not how it works, because they're their own human. And they actually don't necessarily want to do what you want them to do quite often. And so I have to give grace to my son Pierce and to myself and say he is going to chart his own path. And oftentimes I try to give him the best guidance possible. And obviously I try to work on his subconscious with the affirmations. But at a point, the one thing I've tried to do is not project fear onto him. I've seen too many parents. You go to the playgrounds, you go everywhere. Stop! Don't get off! Yeah! Oh my God! Oh my God! You stop! No. Listen, if your parents are projecting fear upon you, I don't care if you're kindergarten. Say, hey, mom, dad, stop. If you keep projecting fear on me, I'm not going to be fearless. And the only way I'm going to live a great life is to be fearless and to take massive risk. And I do understand why you don't want me to take these massive risks, because you're afraid for me, because you love me. But if you really love me, you would restrain yourself and your impulses to allow me to make my own mistakes, allow me to bump up against my own edge, and allow me to take risks so I become a fearless human. And so the one thing I've tried to consciously do is never project fear into Pierce. And I've regretted it a few times. He's had some bad crashes on a scooter once where I knew it was going to end badly. But I said, hey, I don't think that's a great idea. I'm just telling you, I wouldn't do it if I was you. But hey, do you? And he didn't break a bone. There's a lot of tears, some blood, but he didn't break a bone. So that was the thing. Don't put this in the recording. I don't want Child Protective Services showing up.
Hey, and you were there to pick them up, and I think that's what's important. Let them make their mistakes, but you're there to pick them up.
I said it was a bad idea. I'm just telling you.
All right, one more question, and we're going to actually have our CEO and founder, Earl Martin Phalen, kind of close us out. So let's see. So many questions. Okay. A question just came in about your book. So you have written many books, so we'll end on this note. Which book was your favorite to write? And I'll add my own. Do you have another one coming out that we can look forward to?
Well, first of all, I'm not planning on writing another book, although I got a little inspiration the other day. And it's usually when I get inspiration that I'm like, ah. And the way I write, just so you know, and I shows that, you know, you get inspiration, you write a note, and maybe if the notes keep flowing that are kind of boom, 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 then they start coming. So, but I don't plan. I'm pretty busy with this campaign, so I don't think that there's a book being offered. Although, you know, there is technology. Maybe I should have Chat GPT 4.0
Yeah.
write my next book. Hey.
Right.
So, needless to say, my favorite book is Letters to Your Young Brother, Manifest Your Destiny. It's my first book. It's the only book I ever thought I'd ever write, to be quite honest. And it's the thing that I've done out of, you know, outside of being a parent and adopting my son. That book, Letters to Your Young Brother, is the most important thing I've ever done. And it's probably the thing I'm most proud of my entire life. So that's my favorite book. It's my first book. And that book is so just from the heart, because there were no books at that point, no motivational books for our young men of color out there. There was zero. And I'm proud that was the first, and I'm proud that it's become the #1 selling motivational book for teen boys in history.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Harper. Earl, it's on you.
First and foremost, Hill, thank you for being here with us. For those of you who would not have any reason to know, Hill and I went to law school together, so we have a long history.
Yeah.
I was going to ask him.
He was a much better student than me.
Well, I was going to ask you, what did it feel like to be the second best looking brother at Harvard Law School, but I won't ask you that. I will.
No, I'll tell you. People often ask me, they're like, Hill, did you really study? And I say, man, I graduated cum laude. Well, most of y'all graduated thank you laude.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. As your first of all, and second of all, thank you so much. I couldn't have loved what you shared with all of us, children, adults. Couldn't thank you enough for those different messages. Hill, if you would kind of say, you talked about affirmations. What's either question? What's the one affirmation that you say most often to yourself, or if you are advising our scholars who are just incredible young people, as you said, just like your son and like many of us, what's the one affirmation you'd encourage them to state the most?
I'll tell you, the #1 is I will not allow fear to stop me. Yeah. And because what I found is even when you're really young, even with my son, maybe there's somebody that you don't know that just, hey, you want to play? Want to be my friend? We stop ourselves. We stop ourselves too often because we talk ourselves out of it. We think how it's going to be received. If you have an intuition to do something, start a business, even at your age, write a book, even in kindergarten, set up a lemonade stand next weekend. Do it. Don't allow fear to stop you. Don't allow someone else to talk you out of it. So I will not allow fear to stop me. Every time that tape plays, like, maybe I shouldn't. No, I won't allow fear to stop me. Now, if it's a bad idea, maybe that should stop you. But if it's, you know, if it's unsafe, that should stop you. But if it's just an intuitive thing that you're like, I'm going to be nervous, or it's going to be hard, or I'm going to be scared, then don't let that stop.
Truly cannot thank you enough. As you go on your Senate run, if there's anything the PLA family or myself can do to support you, please let us know. It's such a blessing to have you with us and with our scholars and our families.
Thank you so much, everybody. God bless you guys. You're amazing. Keep it up. Know that you're incredible.
Thank you, Hill.